Hey y'all, welcome back.
Hey, hey.
Black Boardroom Collective is here, ready for another great episode. How's everybody feeling today? Nikita?
Tired, but I'm good.
I'm with you.
Same.
Yes.
We here. We showed up.
Yes. Mr. Producer, how you doing back there?
I'm Gucci, man.
Hey. All right, so we are continuing our series, and this is the last piece, and we're wrapping up how we see us. So today we're going to be talking about double standards, what that looks like for us when we look at men and women, boys and girls. We're also talking about our bodies, the sexualization of our bodies, and the policing of black bodies. So we're going to get into all of that, but before we do, we're going to have a little fun because y'all know what? It just keeps on rolling in. Got another email.
Uh-oh.
So we have another situation. This one's a really good one. I want to know how we should, could, or would handle this, okay?
Okay.
So this one says, hey guys, so I just started working at a restaurant. It's a really nice spot. I won't say the name. Just wanted to know if you think it's normal that they asked me to judge to the best of my abilities people's looks for the purpose of seating. Is this normal? Do other restaurants do this? They told me pretty people sit up front and seat the ugly people in the back. What?
Wow.
I never heard this, so let's just start right there. I didn't know they do this.
Never.
No.
And now I'm going to be going to restaurants like,
Checking out where they see them.
Right?
Yeah, that part. And I feel like I've been in the back a lot. Maybe look, I'm trying to go back in my memory. Wait. Don't do it, but I can see.
like some of the upper echelon, upper crust, I can see like maybe
Because
like,
it's about the look.
right.
But who are
Yeah, I
they?
can see the look of staff, not the look of the patrons.
Exactly. Wow.
But that's
That's
what you're
deep.
training people to do.
He needs to report them.
And then so what is considered nice looking, beautiful?
Exactly.
That's right.
Like, are they looking at us thinking that, you know what I mean? Like, and if we don't fit the aesthetic, you know that we're not going to be the ones sitting there.
Exactly right. And like you're saying, in those type of restaurants, I mean, we've all been to nice restaurants, but in those establishments, if it's not black owned, in most
Right.
cases,
Right.
they're going to certainly push us to the back.
So it's like sending us to the back of the bus again.
I'm Rosa, that part, yeah. Yeah, so
So
now.
what do we say? We say, nah, I'm not sitting
that part, I said, wait, where are you going to seat me? Because I don't want to sit that,
I
yeah.
would like this table right here.
Oh my gosh, because now now that you made us aware, I'm gonna be paying attention to it.
I know.
And I refuse. I'm not sitting in the back.
Wow.
Rosa, my feet hurt.
But I do know that people hire sometimes based on that.
Yeah.
For sure. Especially in those stores like the younger crowd stores, Hollister and Forever 21. Although they're not supposed to, you can tell that that's what they do.
Listen, when I worked in an attorney's office, he blatantly told me he only would hire pretty people.
Oh, wow.
Are you serious?
But I loved him though, so yes, rest in peace. But I love him.
And he was saying you were
but
pretty, so that was cool.
He did, but yeah. So everybody that
Get
worked,
So
out.
discriminatory.
it was.
So if you are a freaking genius, top of your class,
Don't even
you
matter.
couldn't get a job if you didn't look the part.
No, he said I can't have anybody sitting in the front representing my agency if you don't look like what I think you should look like.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
And a
Well,
lawyer.
this stuff is real. It really
That's
goes
true.
on, even though we know that discrimination is illegal.
Right.
But then again, I guess beauty is relative, so it's not a protected class per se.
Right.
So how do you like?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I don't
mean,
think
because
there's
you can't. I
anything
mean, you
but
can
thank
try to, go because people once they hear it, they may, try to start pressing charges. Oh, they didn't hire me because I look. But now, how are you going to prove that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
can't.
Yep.
difficult to prove.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So I think with this, like, I don't think there's anything they can do because
Right.
that's just the practice of the
Yep.
restaurant. So
Yep.
you have to make a choice. Are you going to stay there, or are you not?
That's
Because
right.
then if you refuse to comply,
You won't work there.
right.
Yeah. And that's what for me, it would be more like morals. I'm not, I mean, a lot of time, I mean, it's easy to say from the side though, because when you need a job, it's not that easy to just walk away.
True.
But if that's not the case, and it was just like, if it's an option, I will be out as soon as possible because that's not cool.
Change can sometimes happen in numbers, though. So maybe everybody who's working there can go
That's
to
true.
upper management.
That's true.
But just one person speaking on
No.
it is
Yeah.
not going to make a difference.
And I mean,
Absolutely.
certainly if the people there care enough and if others have complained about it, but yeah, if you're the only one, that's you're not going to make a wave.
That's
in the
right.
pool. But yeah, I think that regardless of whether or not you need a job, because we all need to work, right?
Right.
But it should never come at the expense of compromising
I agree.
your morals.
I agree.
And making yourself feel good. Like if you go into a place every day that you know you have to put your better judgment aside,
Right. That wouldn't work.
is it worth being there?
That wouldn't work for
And
me.
what happens when the person that's hiring thinks that one person is beautiful and maybe
Right.
the owner doesn't?
Right.
So, like, how do they find that balance?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a hard one. So
That
I don't know
is.
if we were able to give you an answer, but
Yeah, that's a great question.
yeah, you might want to consider leaving.
Yeah.
So there we go with that. I would leave. I think we all would.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
be out. I
But
would
in
be
the
out.
meantime, while you're still looking for another job, just go to work presentable.
Yeah, clearly. Before they tell you to leave.
Yes.
All right. Lordy, lordy. All right. So if you have a situation, a question, anything you want us to help you with, email the Black Boardroom at the Black Boardroom Collective at gmail.com. All right. So let's get into this.
Let's get into it.
This last piece of this series, How We See Us. So let's start with double standards. And again, we are taking it from the perspective of looking at men and women, boys and girls, and also black, white, black and non-black, because we all know that, not only are there double standards with genders, but certainly
Oh,
in
yeah.
race relations too. So
100%.
who wants to get us started?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I can get us started. Okay, so I think that double standards, no matter how you look at it, it's rooted in white male patriarchy. It's rooted in white supremacy standards. And I say that because it seems as if there's always a certain look, a certain standard of how one should act as far as behavior and conduct that is centered. And anything outside of that center is considered different, is considered questionable. And so what doesn't fit in is, not acceptable. But if anything falls in line with what the standard is, then, of course, exceptions are made.
Right.
People are allowed to get away with certain things, whether it's saying things, whether it's acting a certain way, or even looking a certain way. But if anybody else were to do that outside of what is deemed to be the acceptable standard, then that's when, you're being questioned or you're being told that, you're doing something wrong.
Right. I mean, and we can come at this, like you said in your opening. I mean, we can come at it from so many different angles. I just immediately went to the workplace, and being a black female. We can't be assertive because they're going to look at that as, we're being aggressive.
Right.
We're
The angry
we're
black
angry.
woman.
Exactly. So that's a definitely a double standard. But and when I say that, I mean like white and black or black and non-black. For men, I think, for black men, I've been around enough to have conversations where if they're just being direct, then now, we'll calm down and that type of response where it's like they just want to speak their mind or they have a question or they didn't agree with how something went down. But if Tom came and approached it, it could even be louder and more aggressive, but it just won't be
Right, because
received the
he's
same.
a leader. He's seen as
Absolutely.
But to even go back to where you started with that, being Black women in the workplace, and I know we've all experienced this in some way, but I call it white girl stuff. Just the complaining or the whining that can take place, or you raise so much of a fuss of something being an issue with you that concessions are made, things are changed for
Yes,
you.
it's true.
But in certain cases, we have to just suck it up and deal with it,
Yep.
or we know to just not to complain because
Yeah.
things won't be changed or moved forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take it from a different perspective with double standard. Y'all know my background is domestic violence. So I think of the double standard when we think of male victims, right? The double standard, people will see women as the victim always. Men can't come forward. If they do come forward, it's,
Yeah.
like he's a wuss, well, how did that happen to him?
Yeah.
So that's a double standard placed on, men. Thinking about shelters. Well, no man is gonna come here to be sheltered because how are the women going to feel? Well, this
Oh, my
man
goodness,
is
that's
a
true.
victim of violence, just like the women who are in the shelter. So I think of double standards. There's so many.
Wow, I
but
didn't even
just trying
think
to look
about
at
that.
it
You're
from
right.
a different perspective, like there's a double standard too that happens to men in domestic violence
It's true.
or sexual assault. People always talk about little girls. What about the little boys that the
That's
coach is
right.
taking to the field and sexually abusing him?
Yes.
People want to overlook that. Or thinking about men in therapy. We put so much pressure that men can't do therapy, but for women, it's like, okay, let's deal with this.
Yep,
And
that's true.
So there's a lot of different angles to look at it. And then speaking of therapy, thinking of white people getting therapy, it's acceptable. Thinking of Black people getting therapy, it's a taboo. And it's something that's put in society so that we can, internalize that
Right.
and not be better, not heal and do those things. So
I have a question with that. Did we do that to ourselves, though? Did we make it taboo? Because, back in the day, we would always say that, we would have the sayings of pray it away or, go to church.
Or what happens in
goes
this
on
house stays in this house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not letting people in because we don't air our dirty laundry. So did we do that to
but
ourselves?
why didn't we air our dirty laundry? Is it for our own protection sometimes that we don't air our dirty laundry? So we have to think of the stigma that's placed on the laundry, that if it's out, what society is talking about
That's
Black folks.
right.
So we did it to ourselves in a sense, but we're also protecting ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, to even take it a bit further, to go back historically, Black people weren't even allowed to get therapy, for trauma that happened way back when. So even after slavery was ended, that was not seen as something traumatic for Black people. We were not allowed to get help. So all of the, effects of dealing with the trauma, we just had to deal with it and move on. It's like, okay, so now you're free. People just live,
Right.
so that answers
still
your
being
question.
denied.
We didn't do it to ourselves.
I get it, but we have made strides so much so that you're seeing a lot more of us being therapists, being in those fields, but yet there's still a demographic of us that still won't go or, won't engage in.
Especially the men.
Yes. Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, thinking from it from that standpoint, are we doing it to ourselves still?
But when
there
think
is
of-
access now.
But there is access now, but also when we think about men, what are men? Men have to be strong. That's what society says, right?
Yeah.
So getting therapy, crying, talking about your problems. Men don't talk about their problems. They shoulder them problems.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what's going on. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Women are emotional. Men are strong. So if I'm strong, why am I going to therapy? No.
Right.
I'm taught to deal with this. What do you tell the little boys? Stop crying like a little girl.
That's
you
right.
know what I mean?
And
so
that
very
I don't
early
agree
on,
with.
you grow
Yeah.
up and you're taught
true.
don't show your emotions, don't, because that's not what men
Yup,
do.
that's right.
So that's why men don't seek therapy, because they can't acknowledge the problem. They're supposed to be strong and to be a man.
That's right.
You have to bear that problem and just keep going forward.
And if the woman they love most, and the first woman they love, that their mom, is telling them, "Don't cry, you better not cry. Boys don't cry," punching them in the chest. I mean, some of it is us. Some of it is us. But that's why you really got to try to break cycles and and try to change the narrative, because we need therapy. Seriously, like we need it. It's funny because I was thinking too. It's so many, like, it's such a good topic. It really is, because I was thinking about a situation before with my son, and I told him, and I tell both my kids from the gate, it's okay to have emotions like that. That's how we're wired. It's okay to cry. You express your feelings. You talk. But I make him feel that type of comfort in house.
Yeah.
But when he's like at school and things like that, he's not letting a tear fall. He will wait until he gets literally like Friday. He's gonna cry when he gets to the car. He's not. He's not gonna cry in like front of people. And so it makes me just like think, like, where did that come from? Because I know it did not come from home. Because we are like we stand, like, we're proud that we tell him it's all right to cry. Like, men cry. A strong man cries. But that's not what he shows at school. Even. I can even, like, his teachers may talk to me, like, I'll ask how he's doing and check up on him, and they'll be like, he's such a good kid. He just, like, his personality is such a sweetheart, but they could tell, like, he holds a lot in. And I'm like, where's that come from? Sometimes I think it's just in the blood.
But it's outside too. Think about it. A kid fall on the floor. Suck it up. Get up. Get up. Get back in the game.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean? So
That's
it's
true.
coming from so many different angles. And you said as a mother, you're telling them certain things. But what about as a dad? What about as the male figure that they don't see cry, who's been told very early on? So they see that man acting manly. You know what I mean? To cry is, for a man, it's, like I said, that's seen as soft. That's what society says.
True.
So even if you as a mom are saying, go ahead, cry, show your emotions, right? If dad isn't crying, or the male figure in the household isn't crying, or the man is saying, that's not what little boys do.
Right.
If I'm seeing a man and I know I'm gonna grow up to be a man, that's what I'm going to emulate.
Yeah, and
So-
that is in most households. I do agree. Now, I in my own situation, his dad says the same thing as me, but that's not the case in a lot of
Right,
other
it's not
households.
the
You're right.
norm.
And I guess, like, TV. There's
Exactly.
other things that, and they stay in social media and they stay on the YouTube thing is crazy. So I guess that is what it is. But I was questioning that, and I'm just like, I want you to know it's okay, because this is why they end up being so angry a lot of times. This is why they, get with women and just so mad, and they hitting their women, and because it's not always what they see or what you taught. You know what I mean? At home, rather. But I'm just saying it's really sad that it's that way, but that is how we've raised our kids. Another thing, when he played football, my son is built to be a football player. I know, like, he will be a great football player. I tell him you can do whatever you want to do. However, the coaches were so rough. My boy was 6. He never wants to play again because they yelled instead of. And I told him, this is the age where you encourage and you make it fun so that they want to play. But you yelling at him like his dad don't even yell at him. Like, I don't yell at him. Like, now he's scarred. So, it's unfortunate. But I guess now that I'm sitting thinking about it, it is other circles and environments that kind of change how they respond.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, to experience those things over, at an early age, it causes disassociation. Like,
Yes.
And they don't know what it is,
Right.
but they
Right.
just know that they are removing their feelings from something.
Absolutely.
And that's a trauma response,
Yeah.
as a way to defend and protect yourself. But what about the flip side of that? So, in looking at the girls, because we are supposed to be the emotional ones, and we are, I guess, seen as that way, some of us will grow up to be people pleasers. We'll grow up
True.
to put others before ourselves and not take care of ourselves. We'll be the nurturing ones, the caretakers, and all of that. And that, too, causes harm to us because we don't grow up with the sense of identity of who we are as individuals.
Yep.
It's who I am in respect to taking care of everybody else.
Right.
And then so if you were to ask me, what do I do for me, or who am I wouldn't know how to respond. And I'm saying that because I know that firsthand.
Got you.
That's how I've been, and that's how I am. And, I just, in thinking of, myself in preparing for this discussion, I'm just like, if someone were to ask me, who am I? I really wouldn't know what to say that wasn't attached to doing something or being something
true.
for someone else.
That's real. That is real right
We
there.
put a lot of our identity in
Oh,
being a
yeah.
wife, being a mom, being a this, being a that.
Absolutely.
And it's like,
But
but who
even
are
if
you?
someone were to ask you, who are you? I'm such and
Yes.
such as mom.
Yeah, no.
I'm such and such. That's true. We don't. It's never like, and we kind of touched on that too. Like most of us are walking around not even knowing who we are for real.
Yeah.
And just because time goes on and you getting older, don't mean that you're fully mature or that you're going to age. That's just what time. That's what comes with time. But I mean, honestly, this is why I think therapy is so important because we all are harboring so much trauma and don't even know where half of it came. Sometimes we don't even know where it came from.
Right.
But it's like that's a true statement. I said before, I don't because I've only really been in two real relationships that I always, and I always say I don't know who I am outside of those. And that's another, that's all I know. I mean, I was 19. So that's when I got my first relationship. And I'm like, we really need to like self-care, self-awareness. Like all this is very important. The sister groups, like you need these circles to kind of figure out who you are. Because I mean, outside of that, because if any of those things leave, none of the stuff that we are attached to is promised or
Right.
guaranteed. So if it should leave us, what do we
Or
do?
realize be it.
This is why a lot of us just, we unravel now. We don't know what to do with ourselves.
Yep.
Once our kids go to college and now what?
I'll be honest with you. Like, had I been an empty nester this year, I wouldn't know what to do. But because I still have my youngest one there, my two older ones are, one is leaving this year, the other one is kind of, in and out doing their own thing. But if I were to truly be by myself, I wouldn't know what to do.
You done lost your
identity
mind.
is defined in motherhood and
Yes.
in relationships. So it's like you almost have to strip yourself down from all
Yes.
of those things to figure out who you are at
Yeah.
the core.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad. If you really look at it, like, listen, one of my favorite things in life is being a mom.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, it's sad that, like, that's what we have. That's what we have. We have our kids,
It's not
but
a bad thing that that's who you are. I mean, we have
It's
so many
right.
different identities, but we have to know who we are.
But
at
who?
the
Right. That's
core
what I mean.
of
It's
those
kind of
things.
sad because we don't know who we are without them. And I really want to know. Like I want to know.
Yeah.
Like what is our purpose? And you think by the time you hit 40, that you'll have it all figured out. You do not. You do not have it all
Unless
figured
you
out.
do the work. But I'm glad that we have language now, like talking about self-care, talking about, self-love and awareness and all these
boundaries, because that's so
Yeah.
important when you talk about giving so much of
Yes.
yourself. Even with my
Yes.
children, at a certain point, I was always this person like, "Mommy, can you do this? Mommy, can you do it?" And I'm always just like, "Okay," because
Yep.
they're my kids. And I
Absolutely.
love them. Even if they're sitting at the table and it's like, "You can get me juice," and the refrigerator can be
Yes.
right here.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
Girl.
right. So I had to start saying, "No,
I start
no."
me-
Like,
oh, my
no is a word
goodness.
that applies to my children now too.
This is therapy, y'all. Y'all don't even know. That is real. Oh my goodness. Yes. Enabling. We're enabling
Yes.
it. That's
there you
it.
go. More of the language
Yes.
that we didn't grow up with these words
That's
to know what it is,
right.
but now
Yes.
we have more sense and we're able to
Absolutely.
connect the dots with these things.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, that just hit different because I had to tell my kids that too.
Yes.
Like I refuse.
Yeah.
And they'll have their food. Mom, can you hand me the juice and just keep eating? And I'm like, my food's now
It's cold.
freezing cold.
And for the longest time, I felt bad when, so that's why I would always do it. Like, okay, well, let me just get this. Well, they don't have to get up. They don't have to, or they get up. Okay, I can just make up their bed when they go in the bathroom to take their shower. I'll just go and make
Yes.
up the bed. And I was like, no.
No.
You get up the same way I do. Make up
Yes.
your bed. You're 10 and you're 13.
Figure
These
it
are things.
out.
Right. Because
That's
I
right.
don't want some woman to be having to make my son's
Yes.
bed
That's
when he gets
right.
up
Going
and he's
to bring it
19.
That's right.
And,
Yup.
somebody for my daughter, you can't do these things and you're dependent on a man to
Yeah.
do things that you can't do for
Yup.
yourself.
That's
So
right.
it's like, at this point, no, you're capable.
Yes.
Let's do what you're capable of doing. I'll do the
Yup.
things that you can't,
Right.
but the
And I'm
things
gonna
that
be
you
teaching
can,
you.
let's
Yeah.
do those.
Yes, I to a point where I made my daughter make her own food the other day, and I was in my room like, oh my God. Well, and then she came in, no lie. She came in, she's like, well, I got through it. She said, I burnt the oven mitt. She burnt. When I tell you my heart dropped, because I have a gas stove, and she was like, I did burn the oven mitt, but I'm fine. I'm in one piece. I should have been looking over her, but it's like sometimes you gotta let them go. And I got to finish doing what I was doing, even if it was nothing. It's just we gotta break the cycles
Yep.
and just teach them different, so they don't mind going to therapy and they know it's just a natural thing. My mom used to go to therapy, and let it be just a normal thing, so
Yeah.
they can teach the same and pass it forward.
Yeah.
And I think if we keep in mind that we are raising future mothers and wives
Yes.
and husbands and fathers,
Yes.
that would kind of keep it in perspective. Because I tell my son all the time, you're going to learn to do this.
That's right.
Because you're not going to be a burden on a woman.
I know that's right.
And Brittany,
That's
you
right.
coming from HR, I read something the other day that talked about these are also the new employees that are coming in that
Yes.
can't do things. They're going to their supervisors asking, how do you do this?
Like
how do
it's
you do
their
that? This
mom.
need direction for everything.
Yep.
So I was like, we're not doing that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not my child. I'm
No.
not. I agree. We gotta break these cycles, y'all.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, since you brought up the workplace again, real quick, if we can touch back on the workplace. So, as Black women, have you ever been in situations at work where you are in a room, whether it's in person or virtual, and, the jokes are being told that you don't find funny, but you're not laughing. You're not engaging in conversations because I might not watch that show. I haven't read that book. It's not of interest to me. And if you're not engaging, then you're not seen as a team player. Or if
Exactly.
you're silent and you're kind of, you don't have an expression on your face, then it's, what's wrong? Are you okay?
Right.
So why is it that if I'm just being me, if I'm choosing not to contribute because I don't have any input, I don't know what the subject matter is, but why is it seem that we're the ones with the problem?
Because it's still that perception, the angry Black woman. So that narrative just carries, and so you're standoffish, you're not engaging, and I think it's just really because of that bias that already is present in the group.
And so I think, again, all of that just being centered around whiteness, but to speak to how we're viewed in the workplace when our conduct is seen as not being a team player, being standoffish, I've seen that being reflected in people's performance reviews, which is unfair because it has nothing to do with the job
Exactly.
that I'm doing.
That's right.
If I am putting out great work, if I'm meeting and exceeding expectations, then why are certain aspects of my personality or my interests being reflected in my performance review and I'm being penalized for it?
Absolutely. I mean, that should not be, that's not an expectation. I don't have to involve myself, in your jokes and your, the side
Or your
conversation.
happy hours after work.
That's a big one there. That's a big one there. Or, if you tell them, oh, I don't drink, that's kind of like, you know what I mean, kind of frowned upon. But, I think if you just, I can't say that I've really dealt with it where it came back in an evaluation or anything like that. But I've been, that person to just be like, wasn't funny type situation. I'm not going to sit here and start cracking up. And it's just not my type of sense of humor. It's just not my humor. But and it would be more of a quiet agreement, like amongst each other, like just kind of look at each other like, oh, she must not be. Yeah, that's just it. Like I'm not going to. I've done it enough. As you get older, and I think that's what it is. As you get older, your tolerance gets really low. And then you start realizing what you don't have to do and what you're just not going to do. And it's just what it is. But again, you end up being the angry one, Or if I hear my coworker jokingly say something like, oh, what's up, homie? Like that's
Just
don't
the
play with me like
girlfriend
that.
thing.
Yeah. And
So-
so I have to laugh. I have to be like, oh, you crazy. No, I'm not going to do that.
Those expectations come under other duties as assigned. Laugh at all of their jokes. Or talk about pets.
Oh, yeah.
But this just made me think of a story you told me about an old supervisor of yours that made you do something for them. Do you remember that? In their office, they tried to make you dance for something. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so can you share that story,
What?
please? Yes.
So I told you that about
Yeah.
dancing?
Yes.
So at a previous job, that was one of the requirements after you had been there for a while. So I'm thinking I'm in trouble. I didn't realize I even told you that.
I guess we talk more than you think you do.
So I'm thinking I'm in trouble because they're like, CEO wants to see you in their office. Okay, like, what did I do?
Right.
So I go in the office, and she's like, well, you've been here for a while, and part of the requirement after you've been here for a while is you have to dance.
What? Oh no, girl, you are lying
Dance.
to me.
What do you mean dance? Turns on music. It was like, well, everybody has to do that once you've been here for a while. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not dancing.
See, she's probably thinking this is funny.
Not only that, after I had been there for a while and I hired somebody else, CEO calls me and said, now you have to bring such and such into my office because she's been here for such amount of time, and we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're not.
What?
Get out of here, dance. And now that is so inappropriate. And here's the thing. Now, if you would have tried to, take it a little further and say, well, I'm reporting you now. Now all of a sudden everybody's looking at you like you did something wrong. But if it were the other way around and you were calling people into your office and it's the CEO found out, now you're fired. Double standard.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's very inappropriate.
Very much so.
And I wonder
Very.
who did she dance for?
Right. Yeah, where you get that from?
Maybe the board had her dancing. I don't know.
Crazy.
I done heard a lot of things, but that's crazy.
So imagine being called to the office to do it. I'm like,
Exactly.
yeah.
And you did not do it, to be clear.
No,
I
did
know
not.
that's
I
right.
wasn't dancing.
I know that's
Because
right.
no, keep it
Yeah, I
real.
was not
There's some of
dancing.
us that probably not us, but there's some
Yes.
people that feel like, okay, for the sake of my job,
Yes, and you're caught
Yeah.
so off guard.
yeah,
And it's like now you're uncomfortable, but it's like, what am I supposed to do?
right,
Right.
Or suddenly, even if it were a joke and you just do something silly, just think about what they just told you to do,
Yeah.
and you did it. It's just
But you think about, I want to say I may have been there for 6 months in that time frame. 6 months is not a long time. Sometimes people are still on probation in a
Right.
6-month time period.
Right.
So if the CEO is calling you in to do something, when you think about their hierarchy and you think
Yeah.
about I want my job,
Absolutely.
a lot of people are just gonna, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
comfortable or not, you're going.
yeah. But then there goes the compromise, because if I dance for you, then what's next?
That's right.
At the 1 year mark.
That's
You know?
right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
And then you
Let
could be
some
the
people
joke
open
at
the door.
somebody's dinner table. Like I'm not doing that. And
At all.
and never this shouldn't matter, but it does. Was the supervisor black, white? What?
No, actually they were black.
Are you serious? That's horrible. And should know better. I was just wondering. I was just because for us that could be trauma. I'm just thinking
Yes.
they always wanted us to dance for them, so I
Yes.
didn't know
Yes.
where that was coming from. But that makes it even harder.
Yeah.
And
It was a black woman, but which brings me back to Brittany's point. Who did she have to dance for?
exactly,
Because the CEO reports to the board.
that's true.
The board isn't black.
Listen, cooning is real, and it still goes on.
Yes, it does.
So, yeah.
Yep. And
Yes.
and if this is the thing, so if you would have responded with something like, "Yeah, well, I feel like I want to that movie Players Club," then what? Are you in now? Are you speaking? Because I just feel like this
Right.
irony.
What kind of dance?
Exactly. And so if you would have said that to her, and now you were being inappropriate, or
Yes.
that's not the kind of dance I meant. No,
But
because
the whole
you
daggone
can't.
thing is
Everything
inappropriate.
is
The
inappropriate
whole-
from the
Right.
start.
Exactly.
From the start.
And then it's like, well, if you don't tell, then I won't. Because you know what I mean? But that's the policy. I'm telling you, working for people just drives me crazy, y'all.
Yeah.
It really, really does. That's horrible. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. And you know what's funny? Have you guys ever been in a situation where when you're in it, you're caught so off guard, you don't really have a moment to think about it. And then
Right.
later you're like, she really asked me to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're caught
One
so.
of those I wish I would have said.
Yeah.
You up all night
Go
playing
in the
a song
shower,
in your
go-
back of your head.
Yes. Now you're having a conversation in the shower, wishing you would have said that. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
The inner
been there for
turmoil is
sure.
a
Yes.
mess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or sometimes you have that I wish I wouldn't have said, because sometimes you're
Yes.
caught so off guard, it just comes right out.
Yep.
So
That's true.
Well,
that's why in the virtual world you can turn your camera off sometimes and hope your coworkers step up and step in for you.
thank the Lord. Thank the Lord for virtual workspaces. Anyway, so let's keep the conversation moving. So we are going to now get into the sexualization of Black bodies and the policing of Black bodies. Now, before we even delve deep into this, I just want to make sure that we just keep in the forefront of our minds that this is something that easily happens to us. It's not something of the past. It still happens.
Yep.
And it happens because historically, Black bodies have never been respected. Never. We haven't been humanized enough to even be respected. You know, because we were seen as property. Because we were always seen as, you know, something for someone else, as, you know, in a sense of serving, you know, something, you know, not being seen or appreciated for our personhood. And so I just don't want it to be lost that it's not something that we've had to fight for, something that we've never, ever had, is that respect. So.
Right. So like back in slavery, like when we were dehumanized, and because the slave masters, you know, us and things like that, they over sexualized our body. That's what we were seen as, so that they could do those things. I mean, not treat us as a person, but as a sexual being.
Right.
And then as you move forward, like you think about Jezebel, right? Like the term that arrived, and then that's what we were called. You think about even Black exploitation movies, right? Our bodies are over sexualized. We were always in the backseat of a car with somebody. Everything with us was the sex, our bodies, just for Black women, just still degrading and humanist, and it all just carried over, like from the slave era, just really not respecting us.
Or the flip side of that, where we weren't sexualized and we were just seen as someone's servant, and we weren't even viewed as someone who may have feelings at all. So being seen as the mammy type, being seen as someone who, you know, was just there to take care of someone or something else. And of course, you don't have a life. Of course, you don't have anybody who's interested in you, or, you know, a family to go to. You're here to take care of us, you know. So, and I think that trope, in addition to the Jezebel, you know, if we're not seen as that, you know, then based on our appearance, others can be seen as being the mammy type.
So hold on. You're telling me that you're telling everybody, for a woman, a Black woman specifically, to embrace their body and do whatever they want to do, however they want to express themselves through their body. That's not woman empowerment, because that's a narrative right now. And I'm just asking as a Black man.
It is a narrative right now, but I think that there should be some balance with that, because yes, there should be a sense of freedom that we feel in expressing ourselves, but in the same token, there needs to be a level of respect.
Self-respect, period.
Yes.
That's
and
where
it's
I
not
was going.
right, and I'm glad you said self-respect, not even looking at others
Yes.
and how others, you know, want us to be viewed as, and respecting them, but respecting yourself.
Yes.
And sometimes you got to think about why people are, you know, what has happened. Again, come back to trauma. Why are we sexualizing our own bodies in such a way? You can do what you want with your body, but sometimes it comes back to the why.
And it's really sad when you really dissect that, because I believe it was because I don't really get into like the award shows and things anymore. But I don't know if it was just like the BET Music Awards, or it was an award show, and it was mainly female artists. It was hardly any men that performed, but every single female who performed, I saw their butts more than I saw their faces. Because they basically came out twerking, and the shorts were like underwear. And I'm just like, at what point did it get to this? Like, Black women have beautiful bodies.
Well, sex has always sold. That's been the narrative. Sex sells.
Absolutely, and it has. But even back then, you know, I'm thinking like rap and hip hop, because back when I'm thinking like MC Light and, you know, in that era, they was not wearing that type of
No.
stuff, and they sold. Like
Mm-hmm.
people was loving, the music, their style, all of that. But now it's like the more of your body you show, the more money you make. And that's sad, because it's like they got to know that they are more than that. Like you're more than your body. We're beautiful, fully dressed. We're beautiful any way it goes. So I just hate to see us out there like that. But again, where it comes from somewhere. They're not just.
But it also, thinking of the children that's watching the music videos, right? So you just continue to perpetuate this sex sells, and this is what you're supposed to do, and this looks good, and all the kids are just loving the song and the music, and the music is just as bad as the outfits that they're wearing. So
you're
when
right.
you pair them and put the two of them together, and your kids are listening to them, it just continues.
It really does. It truly does.
It's cyclical, and if you're not teaching something different at home, and even like at home, like I tried and tried and tried. I mean, I used to have, oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of the CDs, but where they take the songs and they change it to like the kiddie version.
Kids Bop.
Kids Bop,
yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah. And
so
them
I
kids
would
couldn't
listen
stand
to
it.
Kids Bop, like put it in the car, let my kids listen to it.
Yeah.
And then their dad would get in the car and then he would listen to
the regular
songs.
Yeah, that's what
so
the
then they get in my
dads do.
car and they're like, "Mom, really? They tore this song up.
Oh
they messed this song
girl,
up. Tore it
in
to
the same
pieces. I
life.
don't want to hear this." And so then it started
Yes.
being, well, I'm gonna listen to it on YouTube, and it's like, how do you when they're listening here, listening there, or they go to school and they're listening?
You can't
so they
keep them
have
from it.
You can't keep them from it. So then it becomes, all right, let's talk about it.
Yep.
Let's talk about what this is. Sexy Red. What do you find appealing about this? Like,
Yes.
But okay, so we can't start the story in the middle. And there has to be some balance because you went to the MC Lights and the Queen Latifahs and all that, which, yes, we had that. But what about the Lil' Kims and the Foxy Browns that we had? What about Trina? What about, all those other... That was our era that we loved.
That's how it is. I was going to say that's where it transitioned.
Did not like the images of or the raunchy music of, but that was what we were into. That was our era. And so now the kids have only just taken that and just progressed it even further.
But that's what
so
I mean,
it
though.
didn't just start right there with them.
Right.
We had it too.
We did. And my mom and dad, I'm really trying to think, because when those rappers were out, I was in high school. So it's not much you're going to keep from a high schooler, And yes, I'm not even going to hold you. Foxy Brown, Lil' Kim, and Lil' Kim was straight no chaser.
Right?
She was straight hardcore.
Listen, she was hardcore.
But you just said you were in high school, so I think the
Yes.
difference is now they're in elementary school.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, hold on,
high
though.
school.
So I
There's
was
four
in,
some
I was
that
in
were in
elementary
elementary.
school when she was in high school, no pun intended. And my mom was like, "You're not." So I can't agree with you on that one, because we all had access.
Yes.
The access
Yes.
now is amplified with cell phones. But the
Right.
same way y'all were watching BET or MTV
Yep.
after school or whatever at the same
BET
time.
still
that-
blocks some stuff.
No,
Now it is
about-
different now. You must say it is social media. The access for younger children is much different.
It is.
Than,
The
and
social
Don't act like
media.
people wasn't watching BET Uncuts
But no,
and
but-
all that.
I
You
don't
know,
think
yeah.
it was still
Oh, yeah.
I don't think
there
the
was
10
still
that you were watching BET
Oh,
Uncut at
absolutely.
10.
I wasn't 10 when that was at least.
He said, I was watching it.
But see,
But I
that's what
wasn't
I'm
10.
saying. Now kids,
I just wasn't 10.
right? But now
Yes.
kids are younger, and your brain isn't
Trying to
even
give me this
quite
really gonna sit in the
formed.
corner
Right.
for real. Even if that, you really think
But that's what I'm saying.
my
But now
mom would be
the
rolling in her grave
Right,
right
but
now?
see, that's what I'm saying. Now kids are watching the equivalent of BET Uncut
Yeah.
times 10
No,
Yeah.
at
totally
10.
agree.
And
It's
that's
true.
the difference where that brain isn't even formed to process what's right and what's wrong.
It's true.
But ours
So-
wasn't either. So that's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
but
Let's just keep
your
it real,
brain-
though.
No, yours wasn't fully. But at 17 or 16, 17
Yeah.
in high school,
Yeah.
you're making better decisions.
But
than
that's
you
not
were at
everybody's
10.
reality
Right,
because
right.
Eb is older than me, and so I was in middle school.
Right.
You know, so
Right,
I
not
mean,
elementary
I
school,
wasn't
middle school.
supposed to be watching that, but I
But
was.
you were still 13,
I was supposed to
14,
be listening
but
to that,
listen,
but
we're
I
talking about
was.
6, 7-year-olds now. They're not listening
Even
to Mariana and the Little
younger.
Lamb anymore.
Yeah.
They're listening to Sexy Red and Megan Thee
Hands
Stallion.
on your knees.
And
You go on TikTok,
exactly.
there's little 2-year-olds with their hands on their
Yes.
knees, and it is hitting them much younger,
It's,
I
it's
believe.
different.
And it's
So,
really
question:
sad.
if the technology in the 90s was the technology now, will we be having the same conversation?
No.
We wouldn't be, but
We
as
would not.
technology progresses, kids have more
That's my point.
access.
That's
Yeah.
my point.
Right.
We would still be having the same. We wouldn't be throwing the same excuses, but we would. The facts would still be the facts. As a 10-year-old, I would have had the same. Like it wouldn't have been.
BET
Yeah.
cut.
No, and I ain't gonna say that. It wouldn't have been the squiggly lines on the TV screen. I ain't gonna say that channel
Trying
that
to
was.
watch Super TV.
Yeah.
You feel me?
That part.
And that wasn't like I was exposed to that from peers. That wasn't something
It's
that I
always
was
peers.
Right.
you know, like that wasn't embedded in my household.
But you had, but
Got
but
you.
something was embedded in your household that kept the balance. So also when you think about, not to say that broken households were in the 90s, but when you think about the disproportion, like especially in our community, think about broken households now.
So
right?
define that
Think
because
about,
I want to make
think
sure.
about broken households.
Like define broken households. I want to make sure we're on the same page with
Broken
just that
households
statement.
is one parent in the household working, children left unsupervised,
But
you
that
know,
could-
or
okay.
it was in the 90s and
Oh,
the
yeah.
80s, and it's been
no,
you
that's
know,
forever, yeah.
forever. But think when you look at the ratio then versus now, it has increased. Even after COVID, I mean, think about divorce and the number of families that are broken up. I'm one of them, you know, and finding a balance, it's such a difference finding a balance between, like, when I was a 4-person household, like with my
Yeah.
husband in the household, versus now trying
it's
to
a whole
monitor my
different
son,
household, I'm
monitor my
sure.
daughter, go to
Yeah.
work, I'm here now. The kids aren't here with me, you know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like finding, that's a broken household.
Well,
you know?
that's relative because if you have mommy and daddy at home and it's not healthy, to me that's broken.
That's broken.
If
Well,
not,
yeah,
if
if it's
it's
not
just
healthy.
me with my kids and the house is peaceful and there's love in the home, that's not broken.
Well, it is relative, but what I'm saying in the sense of being able to watch what
Yeah.
your children are doing, you know what I'm saying? You create a different dynamic when it's one person trying to find the balance and do all the things.
Yeah.
You know, so whereas I may be working at the time, the kids are out of school, they may be upstairs on YouTube watching something else. I have to be able to monitor all the things versus when you're in the house with somebody else and
Yeah.
whoever that is. You
But
know,
even if someone else is in the house, it's not guaranteed
It's
that
not-
that's going
it's
on
not
too.
guaranteed, but
That
he
they're
said
watching and
Right.
monitoring.
it's not.
Right.
But he said define broken household.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So and then with now people having more access with social media, you know, the kids are exposed to so
Yeah.
much more
Yeah.
I do
that we were
agree.
not exposed to then.
Yep.
And so it continues. Like you said, like Little Kim and Foxy Brown and stuff like that. Yeah, we would see them on TV, but we couldn't sit and watch them on videos and be all into their
Yeah,
life.
you had
and,
to wait
you know,
for that video to come on
Exactly.
too. Like you had to literally sit and wait for it to be on the countdown. Now, if I want to
Google
go
it.
look at Sexy Red, I could go look at her videos and then watch all her videos. And that's like a lot of times that's where perversion and all that stuff comes in. I mean, for real, like it can get real deep when you start talking about these videos and how it is now and how these kids are turning out and thinking that they can touch women any type of way. And because in the videos, they're allowing this. Like, I don't know if y'all saw this new video with Sexy Red.
Is it the one with? Is it her?
With Bruno.
Yeah. I knew that was going to be the top. Like that was going to come up.
The title's
When we start
crazy.
talking
The
about,
song is crazy.
The song is.
I'm
yeah,
like-
I was
wow.
surprised that he even. I
Yes.
was like, he.
Yeah,
would do
like
a song
what
like
is
that?
going on? Because he didn't need her. He doesn't need her. I'm not saying she needs him, but Bruno's that dude, you know?
Right.
So, like, for him
gotta
to
pay
do
off
that.
in
But
Vegas
it's not
debts.
even just the videos now. You know, we think about music videos. They're watching so much more than music videos
Yes.
on social media.
It's like soft porn.
Yeah, so
That's
it's a lot.
I'm be real. Yeah, it's these videos. It's different. And YouTube is crazy, and there's other tubes too.
Yes.
I don't know if y'all know about
Oh.
the other tubes.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
like the dark net's real. So I don't even know what you're
Okay.
talking about,
Yeah,
but I
it's
know
red tube and all like
it's
yeah.
crazy out here.
Yeah, and see that's the thing too. Like you gotta monitor your children.
monitor
Yes, because listen, my daughter was on a Snapchat group, and I'm not into Snapchat. I just use it for filters. Like I don't know how to use it, and she's that kid that just give me her phone, you know. I don't know how long that's gonna last.
She ain't got nothing to hide.
She don't have
Yeah.
nothing to hide.
Right.
So it was like this chat going on, and she was like, my friends keep inviting me to this chat or whatever, and it was like everybody in her class. And it said that her teacher had like a GAD, I don't know, GAD, you know,
GAD.
a GAD.
Mm.
Yeah, and I was just
Which
like,
is dumb.
What is that?
explain.
These little kids
A
be
big
taking
butt.
That
our
means you got a
words.
big butt.
Yeah.
I was
It
like,
stands for
it's
something else, like the acronym.
because it's
GYATT.
GYATT. So it's like, I'm looking at like, God, you know how
That's
people.
what I thought it was. I'm like, and why are they
Yeah.
shortening that and making it?
Yes.
These
So
kids
what
are
does the
weird.
G stand for?
Exactly.
What does the Y stand for?
I don't see. I didn't even know that it was really
assume
an
what the A
acronym.
stand for.
Right. And they were in the group saying that their teacher had
Wow.
that.
Wow.
And I was like, what, you know, and I'm seeing this. She was like, Mom, just, you know, delete the whole group. But I don't know how to do that. So then as I'm looking at it, somebody flashed a sex scene on there. And I just so happened to have it on my phone. And I said, and everybody was like, had like the emojis. And I said, one of your friends in here just put up a scene. And she was like, are you serious, Mom? It was literally like some type of Pornhub something in the middle of this chat. So even that, you can be an innocent kid and you're
Exposed to
and
it.
you're exposed to
And I
it.
don't like Snap because the stuff disappears, so then you really can't monitor it.
And that's exactly what happened. He deleted it and it was gone. It, you know, and like you're saying, 24 hours, it's a wrap. You can't even find it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of times these kids are exposed to things that's it's beyond our control. It's just a lot of things we can't control, but it's unfortunate that they're looking up to these entertainers. Like seriously, I mean, I hate it because we are a beautiful people without all that, you know, over sexualized. You don't need to show all of that, you know, but it's definitely trauma involved in there somewhere for sure because it came from somewhere. But it's really hard to explain to your child that that's not okay because they can't tell.
Right. It's
You know?
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
So why are you saying it's okay, Mommy?
Exactly.
You're like
Now you just old, Mom.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Riz. So that was my new word.
Yes,
from
Riz.
that
That's
shit.
the new
Yeah.
one.
What is that?
And that used to be
It's short
something
for
else.
charisma.
Oh, all right.
Oh,
Weird.
you know
Like,
I did not
these
know
kids
that.
are weird.
I mean, no.
You
Like,
know,
that,
No, I'm
that's not
sorry.
fair.
These kids are
That's
weird.
not
No,
fair.
so you used to
That's
say
not
swag,
fair.
right? Like you got swag,
Right.
so now
Yes.
it's Riz.
That's why I said
Yeah.
that's not fair.
So
Well,
I
then the
learned from
one
the
kid,
kids.
my daughter, told me when they was like, "Oh, you something you a Riz," and it was kind of related to messing with a lot of girls.
That doesn't even match the.
I'm like,
what you
can it
just
at
said.
least connect?
Yeah.
Just like the guy.
That's how you know they don't know what they're
Yeah.
talking about.
Exactly. And when I
But
say
now-
Guyad, she's like, stop saying Guyad. I said, well, the GY is throwing me, and it does not
Nah,
make
and you
sense.
got you
And
gotta
they don't.
say it
So like, yeah.
Like
Like-
my daughter always she be like,
You're in
you
the
gotta
mix,
say it like
Nikita. You're in the mix.
She gotta be. She gotta be.
So I
Yes.
have to know.
I feel
Like
Well, keeping your ear to the street is one thing, but like you in
face
this.
expressions.
Yeah, it was like a thing with her mouth. Yeah.
because my
But
daughter
she's
like,
right.
"Mom, you gotta say it right." I'm like, "Gat, like gat." No, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah,
how they
so-
say it. And then if you try to read their text messages, you need something to break it down. Because it's like everything's an acronym.
But it's intentional.
Yes, it is.
So you don't know what they're
Yep.
saying.
And I'm around my daughter and like my 16-year-old niece, so I'm always like, tell me what that means. Because now you see this new thing they're doing. Now this is the new, like if it's like somebody got some tea or they got some scoop, they do this thing with their.
Oh,
Now that I
supposedly.
said it, watch I start seeing it. It's, and I'm like,
I was about to say, is that an emoji yet? Because
exactly.
It
Yeah.
will be soon.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Exactly.
that, you know, that emoji that looks like you're going like this, like a piece of something.
Wow.
That's what they're. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I wanna take it to this. So let's talk about how oftentimes it's us develop earlier. And so with that, you know, and that's something that's natural that we cannot help, but that doesn't make someone interested in all the adult things or necessarily make someone fast, but to see a young girl being developed early, that is a label that will be put on a young black girl, and she can't help the way she is biologically, you know, genetically built.
So speaking of people not being able to talk about how their bodies, I just want to talk about the teacher. Have y'all heard about the teacher who was terminated because of her body. There was like this.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
So
She was like a kindergarten teacher
Yeah,
or
she was an
something.
elementary school teacher.
Yeah.
Black woman, developed. You know.
She the one that went viral about 2 years ago?
And she went
I'm sorry.
viral.
See, I
She didn't do
remember
anything
somebody
She
going
didn't do
inappropriate.
viral.
anything. She just went to work and wore clothes, and her
Yep.
clothes fit her just like
Yep.
like they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But because she had a big yet,
Let's not. Let's not make that a thing. Not for us anyway. Not for us. Let's not make that.
I'm glad it was
You got-
Nikita and not me.
We're not gonna
Because
do
I
that.
would be in the corner for the
Double
rest of the
standard.
I'm
season.
just
Double
saying.
standard.
Listen, what's
Word.
the double standard?
No,
Let's
if
not
I
make
would've-
it-
Let's not
Because
make
he
that
was
a
saying
I
thing.
he
was
would've
No.
said
thinking
it.
it, and you said it, and I'm
Yeah.
just
See?
glad
And
that.
so we're singing it.
No, let's not make
Come
that
on,
a
we want
thing.
those
It's the
viewers
word.
too.
It's the word. You got it. Listen, we're
We
in
in
a
the mix.
space.
If she's in the
It
mix,
is
we're in
a
the mix.
word.
We in, it's what?
You said it's an acronym, right? We don't even know what it stands for, so why are we using it?
But I don't
you
think
don't
it's
say
an
words, you don't know
acronym.
what they mean.
I'm sorry, Nikita. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
She has a beautiful big butt. That's what it means. That's
She
No,
was
but
stacked.
it's an acronym,
She
right?
was,
It's- but that's what-
listen,
listen.
we ain't gonna say
Anyway,
that. She was stacked.
Right.
Respectfully.
No, right.
okay. Her rear
was
end
stacked.
was voluptuous.
Got
Better.
it.
Okay.
I love my black women, you know.
Yeah.
So she was criticized. And she was criticized a lot by a lot of the women
Of
at
course.
the school who took issue with that. Who didn't look like her. So she was seen as doing something wrong where all she was doing was living in her body and
Yep.
coming to school
Yep.
to teach.
Yep.
So just thinking of when you talk about how people are looking at young women who develop, you know, and just really, you can't control what you look like.
You cannot control.
So do y'all give men passes for not knowing how? I'm trying to frame
how
this.
old a woman or
Yes,
how old a
thank you.
girl is. I don't give passes because
I mean, well, hold on. I cut you off. My bad. You don't give passes because
you can look a certain way, but when you open your mouth, you're also going to sound
we're
a
not there
certain
yet.
way.
We're not at that point. At that point, like, I wouldn't ask the question. I'm literally just saying if.
So a girl looks developed and she's walking by, and a man
Yeah.
might try to holler at her.
Or
Okay,
just,
he
not,
don't
or just,
know.
yeah, or just,
I don't-
just
or
look
say
at her.
something.
I don't even
wouldn't-
necessarily holler at her.
So
Just
no,
look at her.
It's when you
I'm
keep
gonna
going
say,
after
but
you know, for me.
exactly after
Yeah.
you know,
Because you don't
or if
know.
you're lurking around the high school, then you know these are high
That's
school
right.
kids.
There you
Right.
go.
Wait a minute
So-
here.
There
Wait,
you
I
go.
just remember seeing a post from a friend of mine last year or maybe the year before, and they were championing the old heads coming to high school and bagging them like that. That was the thing.
Which has
That
always
was
been a thing. It's always
thing.
been a
So
thing.
double
Yeah.
standard
That-
again.
that-
man.
Yeah,
Double
absolutely.
Do
That
they, do
is
they sit in
so
the corner?
crazy.
Do they
That
sit?
is-
They. All
But you know what's so funny though? You know
Say
what's so
less.
funny? I don't know if necessarily back then we saw it as creepy. Like the dude that
We
just
did not.
graduated
But
last
you know who
year
did, though?
is
We
back
did not.
again
Our
this
parents-
year.
No, that's
Yeah.
too close. That's
Right.
But there were the older
Right,
individuals,
and that too.
not parents, but like
Right.
maybe after college, like that definitely
2-3 years
probably
out,
was
and
like,
they
yo,
back
that's,
and they
wild.
hollering at somebody
But
in high
that's
school.
because,
We
especially
didn't
if
see
they
that
were
as
like,
creepy.
not at all, especially if they were like popular,
Yeah.
you know, known in the street or something like that. Yeah, we definitely would, you know, it was entertained.
Yes.
And we didn't look at it the way that we do as parents.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was just
So what
only
do we
a few
teach our
years
kids?
difference, and
What do
we
we-
just didn't think of it
My
like
bad, I'm
that.
sorry, I didn't mean to
Right.
jump in. Do we teach our kids to not do that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you start to teach your kids from a very young age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think
Now.
everybody, maybe besides me, has children that are getting ready to be that age or are that age
Mm-hmm.
of like, middle school, high school, etc.
Even before that age, I started talking to my children when they could talk. And probably
Yep.
because I'm in this field, but even me changing my kids or, like giving them baths at 4 or 5,
Yeah, no question, no
it's
question.
always
I'm
that
terrified of like,
always that conversation.
too.
You
Me
know,
too.
even so much that when they got to a certain age, it's like, even mommy, if you don't want me to come in the bathroom with you, you tell me that. Like, because if I'm, making it personal for me, and it's like, if mommy can't come in here, then I know nobody else can ever touch me.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I started making that a conversation very early on with both my son and my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's perfect.
And like for like so crazy because I told you guys that my daughter went to a dance, school dance, obviously, just yesterday, and she was she sent me pictures. She always sends me pictures of what she was doing and different pictures her and her friends took. So she took a picture, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at her. She's 12. She's like 5'4", 5'5". So she's tall. I'm not saying that she's real developed, thank goodness, but she's starting to get a little shapely, and I'm just looking at her. She looks like she could be in like 8th grade. She's in 6th grade. And it's scary to me because it's not the people who may try to say something to her who don't know. It's the ones who don't care and they just want someone young. And because she's young, and if anything, she's just scared of everything at this point. So she'll just run and scream because she's very dramatic.
That's good, 'cause there's a
Yeah, she'll like if we're in a
Exactly.
store, like she'll just come over. But it's just sad, like with the trafficking and like what's happening out here. They are looking for girls that young and that age, and that's
When I was
crazy.
in high school, I was on work study, so I would leave school early. So when I'm leaving, nobody else is leaving school
You're at
except
least a
for me.
junior or a senior when this is
Yes.
happening.
Yeah.
So I guess I was like 16, 17 maybe. I think 16. And beside the school was like just trees. Like, so I'm leaving, walking to go to the bus stop, and I heard this psst, psst. So I turn around, and there was this guy standing there. He had on slouch socks, if y'all remember slouch socks.
Yeah.
Slouch socks and tennis. That was it. I turned into Jackie Joyner Kersey. because
That was it. I was waiting for. Oh, he
That was
big
it.
tripping.
Oh, wait.
That was it. Yeah. You got
that was it.
Bring it
I turned
back.
into Jackie Joyner Kersey. I was gone. But
Wow.
even at that age, like I didn't know what to do. Was I supposed to run back into school and tell people? I
Exactly.
didn't, because that mean he could have still been standing there when somebody else came.
That's right.
I just ran to the bus stop, just like sweating and everything. But just thinking, right at the high school, a naked man standing with nothing but socks and
exactly.
tennis.
What was he there for?
What was his intention?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. This is what I mean. And then it's like you don't want to be too overprotective, and you don't, you want to give them a little bit of leeway, but things like that. You know what I mean? Like the unforeseen things and a lot of times they think that you're being hard on them, just like we thought our parents were being. But my daughter, I tell her, you cannot walk around the block.
Right.
You can walk to the corner because I can still see you. Can I walk the dog and go around the block? No, because that quick. That's how fast that happens.
Isn't that sad?
That is
That
sad.
the privileges that we had as children,
Yep.
our kids don't even have that.
Yep.
Because I'm the same. I don't feel comfortable with
No.
you. You're not even walking up the block to the park.
Yes.
Exactly.
yourself.
That's right. That's right. And now let me ask you this: are you different with your son than you were with your daughter?
I think the hesitation gives the
I
answer.
don't know.
No, because okay, so you have to understand my children in relation to age.
Got it.
So my daughter is 8 now, and of course, my son is 17. So he's
Well,
pretty much
your
whatever.
older
My
daughter.
older one. Okay, so
comparing the older two.
So my older daughter, she's the oldest,
Yep.
and no, it was always her and her brother together.
Oh, so they were always
they're
together.
They were
close
together.
age, so they
Mhm.
could be
They're 3 years
together.
okay.
apart. So they were
it's
always
not
together.
Like, all right. See, I was asking that because even like in my family, not just like my my household, but like my cousins or my nieces and nephews. When it comes to the boys, they're always allowed to do more. It's like they're boys.
And I get that. That's how I was raised.
Double
My brother
standard. But
that's
had,
that-
and even
that's
with
what
my
I'm
brother
getting
being
at.
younger than me, he had those liberties that
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
could do
have.
more.
He could do more.
That's right.
So I thought
that's what I wanted to get at.
when I was saying the hesitation was your answer, which I
Yeah.
was wrong. My bad.
But I
I
thought
thought you were asking like when your daughter, who's your oldest kids, when they were the same age, differently, did you treat them the
Right.
same?
They were
That's
together.
That's
what
what I
I'm-
thought.
that's
you
I
what
were
kept them
was.
together. It wasn't one going off and doing something. No, you're going together. You're, yeah.
Oh,
no,
okay.
No. But I will say this though. Well, and being that my son is more social than my oldest, he was going out to the parties, dances and, doing the block party thing, doing the hanging out with the friends and whatever, and, was able to drive and stay out later and all that. That was his interest because he's more social that way. Whereas my oldest, she didn't really care for that. So that wasn't her life. But had she wanted to,
That's why
Of
I'm
course.
asking.
You think you
with
would have let
reason,
her do
just
the
like with
same?
him with reason.
Right,
Okay.
got you. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Me
oh,
too.
absolutely,
Me
yeah.
too. Because that's not the case a lot of times. And like, I try to be the same with my kids, but my daughter tells me now, and my son is 9, and my daughter's 12, and she said just 2 days ago, when Cayman, my son, talks about he has a girlfriend and he's he likes this girl. She said you make it like a joke. She said, but then you told me that you just said from the door I can't date or even look at boys until I'm like 17. And I was just like, because I know Cayman, he's 9 years old. He's just like a joke to me. I know he's not, but then I had to think about
Yes, you do.
you
Not
know
even a
because
proper joke to even. Well, I don't know where you were going, but
yeah.
I'm
Because he's like,
internalizing,
Mom, my
like,
girlfriend. And I'm like, that girl don't even know she's your girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? That's where I am with
Oh,
it.
Well,
got
please,
it.
You see what
So
I'm
your
saying?
daughter's perceiving it differently than what
Right.
you're
And I
giving
was
it.
explaining to
Gotcha.
him, like her,
But it's good that she's calling it out, though.
she,
She's
and she will do
recognizing
that.
it.
She is
Yeah.
definitely me. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And I respect her feelings.
Yes.
Because no matter what it really means for Cayman, I'm allowing him to, and I'm not allowing her to.
Yeah, and
That's
these
how-
9 and 10-year-olds, let me tell you, they talk about boyfriend and
Oh, yeah,
girlfriend.
forever.
They do.
So,
They
Forever.
do.
I
like,
had
you
to-
might be thinking it's a joke, but they
No,
in
it's real.
school notes, they calling each other on the phones because all
Right.
these kids got cell phones and
And
stuff.
they
So
do.
in their
But
mind,
And
they
they
are
aren't
again-
worried about
boyfriend.
it either because we did it too.
That-
So
that's
it's
I know,
not
but
act
that's
like,
right.
yeah.
No, but I'm
yeah.
saying, but in their mind, they are boyfriend and girlfriend.
Just like we got.
Yeah.
You can't tell me my little boyfriend wasn't my little
I
boyfriend.
think
Like,
I got
come
my
on
first
now.
kiss at like 8.
See?
Oh
matter.
my gosh.
Or maybe 10. Maybe 8.
I'm so slow,
Still
y'all.
8 and 10, see, but
I was
you laughing
16.
it off like.
16.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not 8. Like at least
Yeah,
10.
okay. BET uncut.
But see how Ebony like that boy
A
don't.
lot
I mean, that girl
happened
don't
at
even know
10.
how you exist. So she's
I was
brushing it
living
off like
in the
it's not.
city.
They're not
Listen.
like really feeling it, and he is really feeling it.
Nah, listen, I had a boyfriend every
goodness.
school year.
See, I
Some
didn't.
crossed over to different school years, but
Oh,
I
they
had
traveled.
a boyfriend every. No, I mean like when it, like you know what I'm saying.
Traveled
like,
out her
stayed
life
with
at
me.
school.
But every school year, yeah.
That's
I
why
just-
Usher's
That's
her.
what I'm saying, it's
That's
not-
why Usher is her.
Yeah, that's what that. That's what,
my
that's what that is. But it is, y'all. It is a double standard, and I had to check myself. Even though wholeheartedly, I know these girls don't even know. I just know him. He has a cell phone too. That thing dry. Don't know why he call that thing. But he likes girls, and he's really he has a type already and all that. But I don't. I just know that it's not a real thing. She has boys that actually want to date her, and I'm like, yeah, all right, not happening. No, it's not happening. Just because he could be a respectful
So
little
do
boy.
you suppress her feelings? Like if she really were to like a boy, would you tell her that no, you cannot have any feelings for anyone because
No.
you can't have a boyfriend?
No, I tell her your feelings are valid. I understand that you probably like, these little boys. Like I'm like, it's okay. She talks to me a lot too. Like, Mom, I didn't have a crush on him. I know you thought I did, but I do have a crush on. And I'm like, girl, I know that's right. I had a crush on too. But that's just it's a distraction. And right now it's about your grades. Like seriously, that's what it's more about than anything.
Yeah.
God grades, like that's what we're gonna focus on.
Yeah.
Trust me, you got a lot of life to live.
Oh,
So I do. She does speak to me, and I don't ever make her feel like, I don't come at her. No, you cannot. Never like that. But I'm telling her, trust me, these boys going to be nothing but trouble later. Just chill out.
Oh, she'll
And so
she'll
are
find
the
out
girls.
soon enough.
And
Yeah.
so are the girls. The
Yeah.
girls
So are
are
the
worse than the
girls.
boys a lot of
Y'all
times.
mature faster than us. How about that one?
Yeah.
So what's under the
Good
bus?
thing we
I'm
got a
out
guy
here
on the
first,
set.
fellas.
So I wanted to make sure that we touch on this too as we're talking about the policing of Black bodies and not being seen as humans and being seen as property, being seen as science experiments. Are you all familiar with the Tuskegee syphilis experiment?
Oh, yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know is the organization that sanctioned that is now the modern day CDC.
Wow.
So just understanding that, and this was back in like the 70s, y'all.
Yeah, not that far back.
Not at all. And not only that, but to take it back even further, so modern day gynecology, all of those practices, all of the tools that were used were experimented on with Black women. chainsaw was invented for helping women to give birth,
That's crazy.
performing gynecologic procedures on women, a chainsaw,
Wow.
and experimented on with black women. So these are the things, and I'm like, we you know, it's so far beyond how we're looking at things now. Like the pillars of, you know, again, modern medicine and all these practices that we see as just normal things now, it started with us being experimented on in order to figure out what not to do on people, right? Which is horrible.
Horrible. Like we're animals.
Right.
So
Because we
They were
always,
worse.
we
They saw us as
always
worse than
were.
that.
Yeah.
Y'all always were. We always were.
But even in modern medicine, we think about now, like even black women in hospital settings now giving birth, right? We aren't treated the same way when we go
There
to
you go.
give birth.
That's the
you
point I was about
as
to make.
white women, which is why, you know, like
Excuse me.
the
maternal
miscarriages,
fetal,
exactly.
Yes.
The rate is so high
Because
it's
they
not-
feel like we can take this. Like, take it. Like, you know,
Well,
you're not in pain.
It's in the medical books that they study in school, you know, in medical school, current day, about black people having a higher tolerance
Yeah.
for pain.
Yeah.
And then all the diagrams that you see in those books, you don't see black skin. You see white people. You see white skin. You see white faces. It's not us. And so they're treating us different. That's why you get weird people like RFK Jr. talking about black people need to be immunized different than white people because we have a different immune system. Like, what is that?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I also want to talk about how the body keeps score. Have y'all ever heard of something called epigenetics?
No.
So epigenetics is, it's a science to it, but it's basically trauma that you've experienced can alter your genes, and then in giving birth to your child and you know your offspring giving birth, so like generations since, can all of that can be trickled down, but you can trace it back to traumas that happened generations back in your family that altered your genes. So certain things that may be triggers for us. It could be a smell that we don't like, but was that smell something that our ancestor once smelled and they considered harmful, or something was done to them, you know? So we have to take these things into effect too, especially when we're talking about trauma and going to therapy. Like, it's deeper than the things that we're experiencing now.
Absolutely.
How deep does this thing go? Because then if we're talking about generations back,
That's right.
4, 5, 6, 7 generations in my family, you know, who have experienced this trauma, and then, you know, the byproduct of that trauma passed down to great grandma,
Absolutely.
grandma, my mom, me, you know, so, and that stuff is real.
It is real. It goes all the way back to the Bible. It's it goes that far, because a lot of those people, like, were connected to people in the Bible, so it's in the blood. You know what I mean? And you're exactly right. It may be things that you don't even understand, that you're like, why am I going through this? Like, why do I have this? No one in my family has.
Right.
It's deeper.
But
It's
you don't know
deeper.
that, and it could very well be someone in your family that
Absolutely.
you just don't know.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I didn't realize, what is it?
Epigenetics.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I didn't know the name. I didn't know it was like
based
a
on
name
that,
for
I don't
it.
think any of us could have an ACEs score that wasn't like really high, talking about, you know, like the trauma in our bodies and things like that. And then, which is funny that you talk about genetics, because then when you talk about all of the different, you know, how they talk about like hypertension and diabetes and all of these
Yes.
different things that you know, are supposed to be genetics in the black community, that it can all be traced to epigenetics, like you say, which is
Yeah, the
and then-
transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah.
So then when we have these high ACE scores, which also translate to hypertension and like all the trauma and stuff in your body and all the different diseases in your body, it's like all related then, you know.
Yes,
but-
it is. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, speaking of hypertension, they say that black people started developing hypertension and high blood pressure because of, you know, how we were storing food, like naturally how our body was storing the sodium just to keep us alive and to keep us, you know, nourished. And so, of course, those high levels then turned into the hypertension, the high blood pressure,
Right.
and this, that. And so, yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely. And so I am one of those people who I wear my stress. I wear my trauma a lot of times. So my body physically, you can see it. Like I have, been through chronic trauma before and experienced, my hair thinning and falling out. I just had a conversation with you last year about, just having the issue with high blood pressure and, having to go see a cardiologist for a while because of trauma that I had been through. And so just learning that it's not, and we can't dismiss it as, oh, I just need to do this or I take better care of myself, but it's more than what you're eating.
Yep.
It's more than, just making sure that you are giving yourself time for that, self-care. It's really assessing what is going on around you, what is going on with you, and if you have anything that is taking your peace away from you, if you have anything that's keeping you in a constant state of just having to be alert, all of that is trauma.
It is.
And it's not healthy.
Not at all. Stress will literally kill you. I mean,
Kill you.
it will kill you. I mean, that's your body. Your body, your hair getting thin and gaining weight. That's just your body telling you.
Yes.
It's getting deep.
And I'm pretty sure there were flags that I just ignored.
Oh,
but
of
when
course.
it got
You got to keep going.
that,
Yeah.
big of a red flag is when I started to take notice. Yeah.
And like it's funny because that's what we have to do. No matter what, we have to keep going. We
Yeah.
have to wake up and be a mom.
Yeah.
A wife. We got to go to work. It's just, even when we were talking about double standards, as far as that goes, it's almost we're expected to be strong. It's almost like we can't be weak. Because as soon as you show that you're having that's why I'm so quick to tell somebody it's okay to have a weak moment. Even the strongest of us, we need to have weak moments. But
It's not a
like,
weak moment, so I wouldn't even call it a weak moment. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a moment
true.
for you.
Exactly. That's right. But it's really, you're right. And the fact that I'm even using that language, it's just, it's so embedded in us
Yeah.
that we just look at
Because we
it like
got to be
it's
strong so that when we do have a real moment, a human moment,
Yes.
which we are allowed,
Right.
It's seen as weak.
Yep.
You
Same
know,
as
we-
same
we
for
do-
our black men. You know what I mean? Like again, it's like I was talking to someone before, one of my guy friends actually, and he was like, he really made it make sense. He was like, when you're young, you come in, you go outside, you play, you come in, you fell, you hurt yourself, your mom cleans it up, she hugs you, she kisses you, and this happens throughout your life. You grow up, you have a hard game, you come in, your mom, she has a pep talk with you, she hugs you, she kisses you, and then you become like this man, and you're this husband, and you're expected to go to work, and you got to make sure the household's taken care of, you're the provider, you're this, you're that, you had a bad day at work, back burner, and then when you come in, you're just expected to do like carry on as usual, and you don't have anyone there like to just your wife is there, but how many times realistically are you going to be like hug and kiss and put something on their boo-boo, so to speak, because now they're the man. You're a man, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that we put that on our men a lot too. You're a man. Like,
You're supposed to take
you're the
care of
man.
me.
You're supposed to make sure. Exactly. I need this, I want that. We need, and it's
That
like,
goes into the whole thing of being tough and not showing emotion.
Exactly.
Because we can't allow you to have that.
That's
because
right.
We need to depend on you.
yeah, that's
So
right.
we need to retrain, like in general, because what you were saying was, boy, gets hurt. You kept saying mom, but you never said dad.
And it's true
That's what I'm
because the
saying.
dad is usually the one toughen up.
Or the dad isn't
Is
there.
not there.
Wasn't not there.
That's what I meant by we need to retrain, because there's a lot of men that are dealing with things but never dealt with it.
Yeah,
You feel me?
that's
And
right. That's
As men, we need to know how to be able to communicate and accept
yes.
where we went wrong, or the teachings from maybe our dad who had an absent dad.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We just have to really retrain.
it's true.
Like, everything. We need a hard, like black folk, we need a
A
hard
hard
reset.
reset.
Like we
Reset.
need a hard reset.
Yes.
We need to embrace therapy, like you all were saying, because there's another generation. I can't blame Sexy Red for being Sexy Red.
That's right.
But
It's
there's a whole bunch of us out here, our peers, that are blaming Sexy Red for being Sexy Red, and I look and say, why do you continue to do that? Because you didn't like it when that was you, and you were being ostracized for being X, Y, and Z.
But you're also stepping up as a man. I always go back and think about like that Will Smith episode, right? When it was like, why doesn't my dad want me?
Oh, my goodness,
right?
yes.
Like the episode that you cry don't matter. You can sing it a million times and you're still just gonna cry about that
Yeah.
episode. But Uncle Phil stepped up, right? And that's also what we don't have enough of. We don't have enough of other men
Yep.
stepping up. Don't gotta be
Just in
mom's
the community.
boyfriend or somebody else,
You don't
right?
think so, though?
No, we don't.
It's not enough.
We don't.
So-
We don't have we used to have, like, what was it called? PAL program, like all these different programs where kids could go and they could have that big brother, big sister.
It didn't even have to be a program though, just community
just
parenting,
community, period. We
Okay,
don't have
so-
that anymore. And so when dad is out of the house, a lot of times, like I said, it's mom trying to figure out, run around, do this, do that. And mom is also the breadwinner because she's in the single family household now, so it's like, how am I working and providing all of this? And then there's no father figure, so when you talk about retraining, it is retraining a whole community,
Yeah.
a whole community of men and women, because I'm not just going to say the men, because sometimes the women aren't showing up either,
Yeah.
to step up and step in place of, and that's not happening a lot.
So I have to disagree. And I hear that narrative so much that we don't have X, Y, and Z. I think the disconnect is we don't know that we have X, Y, and Z. Like, so PAL may not be a thing, but right here I can name Loop BMG, Loop BNG, Brothers Making a Difference. I mean, I'm not about to sit here and do all of that, but there are a lot of programs that are out there to do exactly what we criticize are not happening. I don't know why we have this stereotype that there's my question is how much is enough?
So look at the disproportionate rate of black boys in juvenile detention centers,
I get that.
black men in jails,
I get
right?
that.
So when I look at that, there were not enough men stepping up into those lives. When I look, I'm from Baltimore City, okay, where things are not, you're in a different area.
No, but it's all the same.
so
It's all the same.
It's
We may be a little smaller, but let's just keep it.
resources are not all the
Resources.
same. Grant funds are not all the same. So I live in a predominantly white area.
Okay.
If my son needs somebody, trust and believe, there is not a program. When my kids go to school, they say, Mom, why is there no teachers that look like me? There is not enough people. And so I think it is based on area. It is based on resources. It is based on grant funding. And so the areas that I'm talking about, where I come from, Baltimore City, it's not enough.
But
But
then
are
let's
there
keep it real. We
programs,
gotta
though?
bring
Are
this.
there-
Are there programs?
I'm not saying there aren't programs, but when you look at the number of kids that need it, there's not enough. There's not enough grant funding.
So let's remove that for a second.
But
Just
see,
for a
y'all are
quick
talking about
second.
something that's way deeper. What y'all are talking about is systemic issues.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
things are set up to be that
Oh,
way.
yeah.
And when you're
100%.
talking
That's why I
about
was saying, let's
our
throw that
young
out.
men being in prison, you can't just talk about, the fathers not being there or people not being there to mentor our young boys. It's also systemic.
It
It's
is.
also set up for there to be a
That's
direct
right.
pipeline
That's right.
that if you mess up, this is where you
you're
go.
going.
That's right.
And we have done so much, the ones who have created the systems and operate the systems have done so much research that they can project and forecast those who will end up more than likely in prison all the way at 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
Very true. But what I'm saying, and that goes back to what I'm saying about it not being enough resources, because the resources are taking away for those children. So they're building prisons and closing up
Oh, yeah.
the
No question.
rec centers and doing all of those things.
That's stuff that we can't help though. If
we
it's
can't
systemic,
we can't help. Well, not true, because community, you talked about, community doesn't have to be systemic. You can talk about these programs. If I don't know about the
That's what I
programs,
was
so
saying.
Yeah.
that is part of the issue.
Definitely.
You might know about the programs right in this, because you're right here in this community and you heard about this program. But if the people in the program aren't making those resources known, and like I said, I live in a predominantly white area. Are they coming to this predominantly white area to say, you know what, for the black people that live in this community, we're here, we're available? Are they making the resources known? If resources are hidden, people can't access them that needs them.
Right.
So I think-
that's a part of the problem too.
I think that, unfortunately, where you are, they're not servicing that demographic because that's not our demographic.
Exactly.
So unfortunately, your son may
So
not
they
have
say.
the access because he lives in an area where that's not really, quote unquote, an issue compared to if you are. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people like that are in the inner city and are screaming from the mountaintops. There's
I
not
need
enough.
help.
Yeah.
I understand that, but we also don't acknowledge those that are 10 toes down.
Like what we do have.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And of course, grant money is an issue. It's always going to be an issue. So why don't we get back to grassroots? And if we're going to boycott companies that ain't for the peak for us, why can't we then? And I didn't even hear this. Why are we moving our money for that one day and then putting it into these programs so then they can advertise that these are the resources
that's
that
what
are
we're supposed
available.
to
But you
do.
know what?
But
I
I don't
see
think
a
the
lot-
message was communicated clearly, but that was the idea. And that's part of our problem too, is we don't communicate these things. But what I was saying is systemic that we can't change is there will always be more prisons and schools.
No question.
That's something that
That's-
we
that's-
cannot
that's
help.
bread.
But
That's
yes, like
right.
you
That's
said,
money.
we can definitely get the word out. We can definitely be there to support one another. It doesn't have to be a program necessarily, but if her son has a friend group of 5 boys, she can take those boys out. She can be there for them and let those boys know that if they need anything, they can call her. They can call her husband. That's where we need to start.
That's true.
And I'm not saying that programs don't exist.
No, I
That's
know
not what
that.
I said.
And I also want to
But
say, I love this conversation
But I said
because
that there aren't enough.
Right.
So when I
Right.
think about the disproportionate rates of children that things are happening to, and while we can't change things systemically,
Yeah.
if we step in and we can be prevention versus be reactionary to when things are happening. That's the prevention part. Going up to the schools, trying to get into the schools, you
Yeah.
know, like that's when kids, elementary, when they need you, when like things are happening, like making those resources available. But it's not enough. It's just,
But then what we have to do too, and this is what I wonder when we're talking about this, we're talking about others stepping up and others being a part. But for those that are coming up and coming into the self-realization of growing up into adulthood and, maturing, where is the self-sufficiency? So there needs to be an element of, I know how to cope and I know how to cope in healthy ways. I know what works for me. I know how I need to communicate and I know, how I'm supposed to react in situations, respond as opposed to react in situations. So there needs to be an element of that too. Because we may not always have someone that's a young man or a young woman can connect to, then in those cases we need to be teaching our young people to be independent in that way, to be self-sufficient, to understand these things, and it goes back to what we were talking about before about knowing who we are and what works for us and having those healthy tools in our toolboxes, and it may not necessarily come from a person being there to give it to us, but we still need it.
so, but how do you obtain it? So have you heard of social emotional learning?
No.
Okay, so social emotional learning teaches young children at a very early age how to regulate their emotions
Right.
and respond.
Right.
So when I worked in Maryland, again, being from Baltimore, We wanted to get the social emotional learning program into the schools, right? So these kids aren't having these explosive episodes. Things are happening at home, but how do you respond to them, when things are happening without being triggered or, just having like these outbursts? How do you learn to regulate your emotions and respond in a, it can be an emotional way, but it's more about communication and learning to like sort of have control in certain situations. Denied. We don't want this program in
That's the
here.
part that she was saying.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it
and that's gonna
was
start getting even harder.
completely denied. But guess where it is? It's in the white schools.
So-
So what?
Yeah,
It's
we do
it's-
have it in our
it's
school
that-
district.
Yes, it's here. It's when
Yeah.
I've gone around to different programs, been on site visits, talk about it. All of the white schools. This is a program. This is part of the Healthy Relationships program. They receive the funding. Yes, this is what our children need. So let me get this straight. The white children only need to learn how to control their
Exactly.
emotions.
But we're the angry ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I feel like, and that's why, not depending on the system for us to get ahead, and I know that is a super tall task. I'm reflecting back to all the school board meetings that I've ever participated in and heard individuals crying for help, and the same programs that I was mentioning and more that were proposing, let us help,
Yeah.
and it getting denied. It goes back to if we just take more ownership, and we have to retrain ourselves, especially in 2025. But if we could be more of a collective as Black people and we have the resources. Believe it or not, if we can do this, what we're doing right now, with no budget for real, there's no excuse. So we have to just get back to the grassroots and stop depending on grant money, one, and then also two, stop trying to pocket to get
That's
ahead.
the problem.
Because there's too many
That's the problem. That's another problem we have.
bad actors out here that portray they want to do something, but that it's the complete opposite, and that puts us back even more. So
Yeah.
we have we need therapy as Black people because we don't know who to trust, we don't know how to trust.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. It's been my experience, and it's unfortunate, but it's real. A lot of times we do have resources. There's a couple programs, but then people don't want to show up.
That part too.
That happens more often than not.
part too.
You're out here and you're. These are regular, everyday people like us trying to have these programs. They go to work, they have a family, but now they have a promo out there on this date. We're going to be here. Bring your sons. We're giving away this. We're doing this. Most people just want the giveaways and handouts.
Yeah.
But when it's like, okay, now this place, this business has launched this, after school program. After the giveaways is done, nobody's showing up, and it's like you got to pay to keep those lights on. And one kid is coming, at once. You have it 3 days a week, and they're coming once a month. You can't stay open.
Yeah.
So that's the thing too. A lot of times there's a lot of crying. And then it's no showing up
But
when
we
it's
also
time.
got to ask ourselves sometimes the why. We're working within a system that wasn't designed for us. It is meant
Right.
for us
Yeah.
to fail. So why isn't little Johnny showing up? Because maybe he got to be at home watching Sally.
Yeah, or
his
maybe the
sister,
mom,
or,
maybe the parents work.
Exactly.
Maybe it's
So
but see,
it's
so
so
this is
many
what I
hurdles.
mean. So
And
how
that's
do you
exactly
get
why we need to
ahead?
attack this systemically. So to say that we need to take this out of the schools, I mean, there's an element of that yes, that is very real, very true. We do need to do that, but things need to be reformed systemically, the education system, because that is something that all of us have to go through.
Yeah.
Is school. So it would only make sense to keep at it, to keep pushing until schools allow this to be in every school. Allow it to be something that is just part of the curriculum across the board.
Or
And
create
not
your own
even
schools.
a special
That's-
program.
That's it right there. Because like I said, and AC, you said it about the school board not letting people in. Like when it's school boards are just hard in and of itself. But creating our own, and I think that's like the answer, because
that was my whole argument. We don't. If we're creating something for ourselves, we're still looking for like assistance, and I get that. But what is the light bulb going to switch of? We ain't really going to get what we deserve.
Right.
But if we just come together, what she say on soul food, the fist analogy.
Yeah.
I forget the beginning, but if you put all the fingers and ball of fish, you have a real impact. We have to. It's too many of us screaming that, but our actions aren't matching that.
That's right. Yep.
I mean, so both can exist. Whereas we're fighting for both. Whereas we can make it happen for ourselves, but also knowing that this needs to be something that is a part of the system that you have every single child in. Because it makes no sense that it's available to some but not to others.
That's right.
All right, so let's get into wrapping this conversation up, which is a really good conversation.
Yes.
Thank you all. But we've talked a lot about, trauma and some really, really difficult, hard things. So I just want to know, what do you all do to process and release your trauma?
So I try to start off the morning by being very intentional in doing that each morning, sort of waking up, breathing. I started doing these breathing exercises. At first I used to do like everybody does, like the hold for 4 seconds and breathe out. But now it's like breathing really intentional, breathing really fast in and out, and then doing the long hold breathing. So when I first wake up, that's sort of like what I'm doing, and then having quiet time right after that. Just sort of reflect on the day, to be intentional, like what kind of day am I going to have? This is going to be this kind of day today. Doing that, and then getting into my workout where, I can take care of my body. Then, like, I juice. So start having those juices in the morning to put the right stuff in my body to start it off like that. So just really trying to be really intentional about releasing everything in the morning, like each morning, and then at night trying to just stretch and just, release.
So this is before work. You do that.
Yeah.
She has a full day before the day starts.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So
like,
that's
whoa.
proactive.
Yeah, no
so
question.
what do you do in reaction to trauma and stress? So say you've had a stressful day. Say you've had a traumatic event, what are you doing to release that or to process it, at least mentally or emotionally?
We know she's stretching.
No.
In the
Stretching and
evening.
juicing.
I am stretching. Well,
Yeah.
the juicing takes place on
Only
Sundays and Wednesdays, so it's already
fine.
done.
There you go.
So I can just go in the refrigerator. But not a plug for C4, but usually I'm gonna have a C4 because I'm gonna need some caffeine also.
We're gonna talk about that C4 too.
I know.
Yes.
But no, hip hop violin has been my saving grace.
Really?
Oh.
Put on them I'm telling y'all, listen to hip hop violin, take all the words out of everything and hear the sounds of the violin.
This is
Wow,
new.
that is new.
Oh my
gosh. I've heard it, but
Yeah.
I've never listened
And
to it or
there's
looked
a
for
group
it.
I went to go see at the Ape House Center in York.
I know what you're talking about. I wanted to see that.
Black violin.
Yes.
Oh my
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. But when I heard them, so both of my kids play violin, right? And so I wanted to
Yeah.
expose them to these two guys, something different than football, basketball for guys or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Went to that concert, and I have not stopped listening to hip hop violin since. I have
Get
found so many
out.
different artists.
Noted.
Like, when you leave here today, just go to
New
YouTube.
tool in the toolbox.
Girl, what? I'm
Hip
straight
hop
up.
violin, you got the beats that's going, you're gonna be pumped, but then you got the violin, and it's like
Oh.
soothing, and
The
it's like
frequency.
yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
it's definitely
Low
in the
frequency isn't
sound.
there.
It's definitely in the sound. Like it's a purpose behind
Yeah.
them
It's
playing that.
all-
Yes.
I'm definitely going to check that
And
out.
so that's kind of like what I do. I just listen to the sounds of music. That is my release. Music is my release. And I can't, you know, I got the sound bar and all that stuff like that in the house, but I can't do that. I got to put the headphones on because I
different.
tune out the rest of the world. Like,
It's different.
nothing else exists.
And honestly, in music, that's a thing. Like when you record, and then when you want to leave and listen to it like in the car or in your ears because it's different. It's different from hearing it loud. So now that's, and you can hear every instrument when it's that
Yes.
close to your ears. So
Yeah.
now that's the thing.
Yep.
So what do you do?
Pray. Like for real, that's what I have to do. I worship. Like so my day starts really early. I don't get up and I don't juice and all that. When I used to juice, because juicing is definitely great for your body. I would do it on Sundays as well because it's time consuming. But when I get up about 2:15, 2:30 a.m., you know,
That's a
weirdly
different prayer
enough,
right there.
That's
it's
trauma
funny.
in and of
Yeah,
itself.
no question.
And when I get up, it's funny though because when I get up, I'm not tired, which is really odd. But
Because your body's used to it now.
I'm used to it, and then I just have like everybody else in this room. I just have a lot on my mind, so I wake up thinking about the
Yeah.
next move and the next plan and what I got to do and what I didn't do. And so as soon as I get into the car, you know, once I shower and get dressed, I'm in the car. I worship. Like I put on music. I thank God as I'm walking to my car. I'm thanking Him for protecting me because it's a crazy time. You know, thank God my husband gets up and starts my car. So if anybody was lurking, they like, oh, it's a dude up. Leave me alone. You know, but
That's that double standard again. So we need to be
and you
protected
know what?
too.
And I even say stay asleep. You don't have to get up. Look, bringing my keys. You don't have to get up. I'm joking. No, I appreciate that He does that. But I get in that car and it's like only like a 15-minute drive, but I'm just thanking God for everything and I'm just listening to you know, worship music and I'm getting ready for my day. I'm like, look, whatever is meant to be is gonna be. I'm not gonna go in here stressing about nothing, and that's what sets the tone for my day. So that's proactive, you know, that's pre.
Yeah.
If it's, and other than that, if something should happen unexpected or something catches me off guard, I pray. You know what I mean? I do. I've realized that moments are exactly that. A lot of times we make things bigger. We make them what they are in that moment. So it can feel huge, but on the scale of things, I'm just like, you know, it could have been worse. I talk to my husband about stuff. My kids make me laugh. You know, we may watch little movies and stuff, but my instinct go-to is, you know, me and my husband both, we put our hand out and like, let's pray. You know, if He's not with me, then I'm just worshiping by myself. We worship as a family. We pray as a family, and we just stay in the Word, and that's what keeps me and us just grounded. And that is like the newer me. I'll say like in the last couple years, you know, maybe 3 to 5 years, I've always been God grounded, but it's on a different level.
Yeah.
And I do feel lighter. It makes me feel lighter, so that's what I do. Yeah.
So I'm gonna just jump in real
Go
quick.
ahead.
What you do, AC?
I knock balls out. No, I'm playing. JK.
Be real about it. I mean,
TBH, right?
I ain't been in a
To be
fight
honest.
Now
so
that's what
long.
you really do.
Nah, but I can honestly say that I talk to myself a lot, and then also, depending on the problem, I'm gonna lean on an individual who is gonna come not biased and not just trying to put a battery in my back.
that's important.
That's
You
important.
know, and just level out the scenario, and or listen to music, and I'm definitely getting. So my prayers right now aren't so much centered around like trauma, but praying for those around me, and even those people I don't know as well. But I say that because that wasn't always my journey. My journey wasn't always like be conscious about when you're done with your fast. Like, so don't just fast and then grub. Like, when you're done with your fast,
Right.
either read a scripture, thank God for getting me through that fast, stay as connected to the moment as long as possible, because once the fast stops, like,
It's true.
Yeah.
you can go,
Fast
it can
is
go a lot
hard.
of different ways,
It's
So
true.
I'm really intentional with that, because fasting is a thing.
That's
a journey.
dope. That's
And
dope.
that's
I would
trauma.
love to get to that. Yeah. And you're right. When you're fasting, it shouldn't be what am I gonna eat when this is over? What am I gonna eat? Like that's not, your mind's not where it should be if that's all you're focusing on.
I'll be really excited that I'll be saying, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking, and I'm also reiterating why I'm doing
Right.
the fast.
That
And
part.
saying, hey,
Yeah.
please protect these individuals who are watching over these individuals that are supposed to be helping these individuals. You know, I try to get as deep as possible and not just make it about that moment, and then when that moment's over, like, I wait till the next day. So, it's me.
Oh.
Miss Lady.
So, I say to stay grounded and to stay centered, definitely starting with prayer. Every night, my kids are in bed. In the dark, walking through the house, because I like to know my home in the dark. I think that's very
Really?
important to do.
Wow.
But before I go upstairs and go to my room and close the door, I just take one look around and be like, just thank you, God. Just thank you that I'm able to pay my bills, food on the table, my kids are safe, my kids are home, I know where my kids are. Like, you know, but in response to trauma and stress, I like silence. I like silence because I now understand how important it is to feel your feelings, whatever that is and however that comes up for you, so if it's sadness, if it's anger, if it's whatever, if I'm feeling hopeless, it's not important to stay there, but it is a feeling. Allow yourself to go through that and get out of it. So I make time where I'm able to just be alone and be in that silence. And to me, that is the meditation I need, because as much as it is, important to have that conversation with God, it's just as important to stay silent and to receive from him. And that's the only way you can hear from him, is if you allow yourself to be that open vessel and you're silent. Because yes, God wants to hear from you, but he also wants you to sometimes receive. And you have to be quiet in that. And that's quieting the things around you. So I will drive in silence, where I've always been one who I have to have my music on. But now I really love driving in silence, my showers are a big deal for me. I make my shower a moment. Baby, I got my shower steamer little pellet thing. I make it a moment. I enjoy it, and I have my music playing, and I'm doing, just everything, and I'm getting out and skincare routine, and, that's what I need. Also, in response to traumatic events, it's important who you are allowing in your space. So not to let people in who are going to prey on, your feelings or your situation. It's good to have wise counsel around you. It's good to, I believe this in everything. Consider the source. I'm not going to seek advice from someone who is, just
Wildin'.
for sure. Nice way to put it. But consider the source, and so just consider the people you have around you. That inner circle is so important. And also, when you have those moments of trauma and stress that is just too much to bear, those will be the people that you can lean on to help pull you out of that. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, I definitely agree about the silence. So that's why I was saying, like, in the morning after, like my breathing exercises and stuff, because that's also a moment to pray for discernment. And
Absolutely.
that is, like, lately, after 2024, I'm like, 2025 has to be so intentional for me. And it's like, Lord, please tell me which way to go, because 2024 was a whole mess, and I don't need that mess in 2025. So
That's
I have
right.
been so intentional to, pray for discernment.
Yeah.
In that silence.
Now that's a two-part thing. So not only do you pray for that, but when you have it, you need to know how to act too. You have to have the
Exactly.
courage to act in that
Yes.
thing too.
Yeah, and trust me, I've been making moves.
That's what's up.
So glad to hear that.
Word. This was another one. This was another great conversation.
Yeah.
Now, I say that because, again, another narrative that's out here is that black men and black women can't have a healthy disagreement, and that whole agree to disagree, which I think I look at it maybe wrong. I just don't like that term because it's like I just don't like it. But anyway, I really appreciate that we can be in this space collectively,
Right.
and educate each other,
Yeah.
and encourage each other, and hear each other. You feel me? So I know at times I'm talking, I may be like inserting too fast because y'all got me. I'm trying to keep up, but I appreciate that.
But it's a
Yeah.
mutual respect for each other and validating each other's feelings and
Right. No question.
Yeah. Which allows that disagreement to be a moment that passes.
yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because that's life.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Such is life. All right, y'all. Well, thank you again for this beautiful conversation. I appreciate y'all. We will be back with another episode. And remember to like, follow, share, all the good stuff on all social medias. We are the Black Boardroom. Email us your situations for our shoulda, coulda, woulda segment at the Black Boardroom Collective at gmail.com. And we will do this again, right?
No question.
All right, y'all.
Peace.